group in our preview of the 2023 Houston Cougars defense. Like I teased before we went to the break, this is a unit that specifically the big name that stands out is Hassan Hippolyte, who's going to be making a transition from safety a season ago to the linebacker spot. Now, that's not unique when it comes to that transition. We've seen it before with this Houston Cougars team. Just think of Grant Stewart a couple of seasons ago when he made a similar transition and had a lot of success. Saw him being able to get drafted in the NFL after he made that transition to linebacker. So Hassan Hippolyte is going to be looking to follow in some footsteps, but he's going to be someone to keep an eye on just to see specifically to be one of those impact players that can be able to make plays from the get-go. And other names that are returners that played a lot of minutes, made a lot of key plays for Houston, and Tremarcus Cheeks and Jamal Morris. Both of them had 35 or more tackles a year ago in the 2022 season. Of course, I think you got to add Malik Robinson in there as well. When it comes to this unit, they don't necessarily have as many new additions as compared to the secondary, but they certainly have a couple of noteworthy names. I think the main one that stands out is Aubrey Smith, who transferred over from Colorado, and of course, Aaron Willis, who transferred over from Tennessee, and they have two new freshmen joining the linebacker position as well. Now, when it comes to the linebackers, they're often asked to do a little bit of everything when it comes to coverage. And, of course, when it comes to wreaking havoc and getting into the backfield and being just disruptors. Now, again, we talked about the third down and fourth down struggles for the defense overall as a whole, but even when it came to the rush defense as well, Houston did a little bit better, a lot better when you compare it to their passing numbers, but still 57th in the country when it came to their rush defense. Obviously, that's an area that the Houston Cougars are going to be looking to improve. Dan, you're muted.
Sorry about that. But definitely, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And the linebacker core, I think, will be faster. It's just starting with Hassan Hippolyte. I mean, this is common not only with Houston, but throughout the entire country, pro and college. Bigger safeties, stronger, faster safeties getting moved to that hybrid linebacker role, just so they can cover the life. Because you've seen a lot of passing teams, so they can cover tight ends and running backs. And I think Hassan Hippolyte, his not only his ability to tackle, recognize coverages, and his leadership aspect, I think his ability to play sideline to sideline will really, really bode well for this Houston defense. It'll really kind of cover a lot of what Donovan Mute did in his ability to go sideline to sideline. So I really, really like that move for him, and I think it'll be in spurts. I expect him to still play some safety as well. But another name that you mentioned, Jamal Morris. I'm excited to see more Jamal Morris. We saw him a lot. He spent a lot of time last year. He was still able to have a very productive season. And so I'm excited to see him as well. But also the name that you mentioned, excuse me, that I'm excited to see is Malik Robinson. I think when there's times where he just flashed all over the field, big hit, a sure tackler. And for Houston, their defense is not only predicated on, I don't want to say stopping the run because they're predicated on stopping both the run and the pass, but I just think it's going to be very, very important to stop the run and try to make those offenses that they're facing one dimensional. That way, if you face a high powered offense like a UTSA, for example, who had a really good passing and running attack, in Texas Tech for that matter, you want to try to make these high powered teams one dimensional. And I think stopping the run will bode well. I think it's probably one of the first things that Coach Belt tries to do when they get on the stat report is stop the run to try to force these teams into passing situations to where you can play coverage and your pass rushers, what Houston is known for, and get after the quarterback.
Yeah, that's certainly a great point. That's been one of the key focuses for this Houston Cougars defense is trying to make teams one-dimensional, and it's something that you look at stats that they did do a little bit better when it comes to compared to what they did when it came to their passing defense, but specifically they still think again 57th overall in the nation. They gave up about 143 yards per game. That's certainly an area that they're going to be seeking to improve on. And the linebackers are key in being able to stop the run. They play a key part just in being able to attack the gaps, and even in certain areas, just being able to create more pressure when it comes to pass rushing as well. Because, like I said, something that we touched on earlier, Dayon, it seemed like this defense a season ago kind of struggled to make big game momentum changing plays when it came to being able to force turnovers, and the defenses specifically, the linebackers are going to be an important group to being able to flip the switch this upcoming season, their inaugural in the Big 12. Now, another name that we really should focus on is Tremarcus Cheeks, and someone
Yeah.
who kind of grew over as the year went on. Obviously, he transferred out of Samford a season ago, but it always seemed like his name was going to be called. It always seemed like every game, consistently, maybe not making the eye-popping play, but consistent. It always seems like you could hear Tremarcus Cheeks' name getting called, being able to make a tackle, being able to make a key play for the defense. Is going to be interesting to see how he grows in his second year under Doug Belk.
He's another player. Every time I watched him, like you said, he just all over the field. You hear his name, and I think his speed and his ability to blitz. I think he's a really good blitzer as well. And so I can't wait to see him. I think the linebacker core will be one of the strengths of the defense. I think they do have quality depth in it, regardless who they play when they switch out. I think that the level of production will be at a high level. Excuse me, I think it'll be at a high level. And I think they were pick up from the likes of when you had the Matthew Adams at Houston, when you had these different linebackers who made opposing defenses have to game plan for them. I think that's what Houston needs at the linebacker position. A linebacker who can wreak havoc, who not whether it be in the run game, passing game, or just all three levels and play sideline to sideline because in the Big 12, it's pretty. The game is primarily in between the numbers in the passing game is a lot of outside the numbers, but a lot of intermediate passing game. And so the defense isn't going to have their work cut out for them. They're going to have a lot of challenges, but the linebacker core I expect to be one of the strengths. A lot of experience, a lot of talent, a lot of speed at the linebackers for sure.
Now, another word, a key phrase that you can kind of use when you look at this linebacker, specifically going back to Hassan Hippolyte, I think what his transition also allows this defense, specifically this linebacker group, to do or to have is versatility, especially, again, like I mentioned just a few moments ago, the linebackers are kind of in between. They're tasked with being able to do a little bit of both worlds when it comes to being out in coverage and, of course, being able to be disruptors as pass rushers or even as trying to stop gaps to limit the run. And I think, again, being able to make that transition for Hassan Hippolyte is going to add a little bit of versatility because I think he's going to be very comfortable if you ask him to be out in coverage, whether it be in zone or whether it be trying to stop a running back out of the backfield. He's certainly not going to be giving up speed when it comes to that aspect if you're asked for him to guard a running back or even a receiver out of the backfield.
For sure. And to the point of Cheeks, he led all linebackers in tackles for losses last year with 5 tackles for losses, and he didn't play anywhere near the number of snaps that some of the stars like Donovan Mune and others played. And so his ability to rush the passer and his speed, I think each of these linebackers that we're discussing all have different traits that make them a good quality football player. And so when they're interchangeable, you will see different players excel at different things. But I think they will complement each other real well because they all have such a versatile of skill sets.
We mentioned Latrell McCutcheon transfer from USC and Oklahoma in the previous segment. His younger brother, Latravion McCutcheon, is going to be a freshman. He's also going to be a linebacker for this unit, so he potentially could be someone to keep an eye on as a freshman. But no, Dan, you're absolutely right. When it comes to Tremarcus Cheeks, small sample size, I think he's going to be someone to keep an eye on. Potentially, again, this linebacker unit as a whole is going to have as a whole, it will have a hole to fill with obviously the big loss of Donovan Mutin, not just from an on the play standpoint, but as a leader. It's going to be interesting to see who kind of rises up and takes that position group from that leadership standpoint, who can rise up and kind of rally all the players in that group. I think, who do you think could potentially be a leader for the linebackers?
I think it's going to be Hassan Hippolyte. I mean, every time we hear him speak, I don't want to, he kind of sounds like Donovan Mutin in the sense of very mature, a grown man, head on straight. And just thinking about too, the Big 12 media conference, he talked about Houston being a blue collar program, the players being able to survive off of the stipend checks that they get and not really looking about the money, just kind of focused on him and being blue collar. So I think just off the top of my head, I would say Hassan Hippolyte for sure.
Yeah, I agree 100% when it comes to that media, not necessarily media training, but that media answer standpoint. He checked that box immediately when he gave that blue collar quote a couple of weeks ago. But Deon, any final takeaways when it comes to the linebacker position before we transition over to the defensive line in our final segment?
Nope, I just think a lot of speed. And one thing that we talked about for the cornerbacks is even more important for the linebackers is tackling, fundamentals, wrapping up, making tackles, and recognizing situational football, and knowing who you're playing, knowing your personnel, recognizing the scatter report on any given play. You know you're facing a scrambling quarterback, and it's 4th and 20. Make sure you keep an eye on that quarterback and not allow him to run for those yards or make a play. And so tackling for sure is something I want to reiterate is important for the linebackers.
Overall, as an overarching question, I'm going to go back to Robinson's comment. How do you feel about the linebackers group overall as a whole? Do you feel confident?
I feel confident about the linebackers. I'm probably most confident in the linebacker core in regards to every position on the defense. I'm probably more confident in the linebacker core. It's hard not to be more confident in the defensive line because of what they've been able to do and how Coach Early has just been reloading every year in and year out. So it's just I'm expecting another name who hasn't made a name for himself in Houston to step up on the D line. But overall, I'm very confident in the linebacking core, and I think they'll probably be the strength or the nucleus of the defense is a better wording.
I think the word for me is optimism. I think there's a lot of potential, but I think there's still some wait and see again, just when it comes to players stepping into different roles, mainly Hassan Hippolyte. But I could see potentially, I agree, they have the potential to be the nucleus of the 2023 Houston Cougars defense. Kevin Jossel says if we have at least one lockdown corner, it can free up the other defensive backs and linebackers, and defensive linemen can be more aggressive. I think that's a great point by Kevin. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree 100%. If you got that lockdown corner who you can lock on one side of the field and you don't have to pretty much worry about or shade any coverage to his side, like you said, it opens up the field for the linebackers, for the D line. And most of this, as we transitioning into the D line here in a second, is predicated on D line and pressuring the football, and as well as the linebackers being able to be freely and roam the sideline to sideline to make tackles on the run game. And so I think it's going to go hand in hand, but I'm optimistic, like you said.